urwitwazo rwabaye indege yahiriye i Kigali ku Kibuye baricwa bibagutamaza umugambi wa kera igihugu cyose gicura imiborogo barumuna be n'abakuru be nta n'umwe n'akagakecuru kishwe by'urubozo yayobewe naho umurambo wapfuritswe agarutse aringa bibereye u Rwanda akayira nk'aka kanditswe n'amagorwa ni kamwe ku benshi banyuranyije amage kibutsa abacu twabuze tubakunda dusabira ihirwe rurema itabima turibuka mwebwe mwizeraga Imana mugana urusengero musaba kurokoka barabasanga bishi barabatikiza habaho ibirengo ruvugiro bagenzi nzahora nzirikana abana b'u Rwanda batsembwe bazira uko Imana ibahaye nzaharanira ko bitongera kubaho mwasaranganyije inzira muhunga umwe ajya mu gihuru ibisura atakibyumva undi mu nzitane z'amahwa y'imishuri nyamara ubuzima bubacika mureba mwebwe mwahisemo gutinza ababica muhitamo intambara ku buryo bushoboye mukoresha amabuye murwanya amasasu abatwara ubuzima mugenda gitwari wowe muri parafo warambye w'iminsi wo ku rusenge bamumanuye atabona murumuna wanyu yihishaga mu rwina umuryango wose urazima muragenda bibuka imodoka yazanye nyakubyara ayiha umugore n'abana ngo arebe yatera kabiri imodoka baratwika ubibenye ujya ahagaragara barakwica nzahora nzirikana abana b'u Rwanda batsembwe bazira uko Imana ibahaye nzaharanira ko bitongera kubaho wowe wari ufite amafaranga unatunze bagumya kukunyaga bagushuka kukureka ugumya kwizera sakindi iratinda wagiye uganira n'abajya kukuroha imyaka ni myinshi ishize turabababaye ingoma ibihumbi tuzibuka iteka aho muri tuzi ko Imana ihatuje tubasezeranije kutazaba ibigwari aho muri tuzi ko Imana ihatuje tubasezeranije kutazaba ibigwari aho muri tuzi ko Imana ihatuje tubasezeranije kutazaba ibigwari aho muri tuzi ko Imana ihatuje tubasezeranije kutazaba ibigwari aho muri tuzi ko Imana ihatuje tubasezeranije kutazaba ibigwari. cumi n'itanu irashize twibuka abazize jenoside, twabuze abana, ababyeyi, abavandimwe,
tubura n'inshuti, bose bazira uko bavutse, batulekedde ennaku n'obulumi, bamulekwa ne bannamwandu. Katonda abawe emirembe mu bujuvu.
twarakanzwe n'ubwicanyi, twakiriwe ikiremwa muntu, tuzogwanya ikintu cyose cy'iyonyabwoko. Hegome no kwiyamiriza imigambi ya jenoside, mbega bishwe bose boba bazize iki? Harageze ko abantu bareka agatima k'ubunyamaswa.
Never, never, never again. Let us keep alive the memory of genocide. Never, never, never again. Genocide against humanity. Never, never. Never, never, never again.
Never again. Tunakataa wanaosema mauaji hayakuwepo na hayatarudi kuwepo tena. Never again will we agree. No, 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 no. Sisi vijana kamwe hatutaki mauaji ya kimbari. Abarokotse nimuhumure, hari mambo nasigaye.
Gucika kw'icumu nikemeza ko mugomba kubaho.
Abacu bagiye heza, bicaye ijabiro kwa jambo.
Tuzahora tubibuka, tuzahora turwana ikibi, tuzaririmba tuti never, never again.
Abana bacu bazatsinda ikibi, bitwaje neza.
Never again. Let us keep alive the
never again.
Inyanza umvinimba intore z'Imana Inyanza zabinimba intore z'Imana Inyanza Kukiriziya Inyanza ni hafi yo mu Rukari ibwami nahabonye Genocide irenze uko ubyumva kandi ntibyakozwe n'uwikantarange ntibyakozwe n'umunyamahanga ntibyakozwe n'umuturanyi ese nzaribarire nde kuwo naribariye ariwe naribonanye guhanga ntabwo ari uguhaga guhanga ahubwo n'agahinda natewe no kubura abanjye kuko bose bashize twe tubeguriye ijabiro nk'uko umwami Rudahigwa yeguriye iyo kiliziya Kristo umwami ubasumba kera twari mu muryango none ubu turi nyakamwe nimundeke mundorere yemwe mwokabyara-mwe batwiciye abapadiri batwicira ababikira batwicira abafurere batwicira abakristu baramwica Padiri Matiyasi Ngirumpatsi baramwica Padiri Bosiko Irirwahandi baramwica Padiri Innocent Nyangezi baramwica Padiri Kalisi Uwitonzi baramwica Seragusitini ayana na Serifu Françoise baramwica Martine Habayo barabica Barutayisire bombi Murekezi François Kankindi ntabwo tuzabibagirwa abana bo kwa Sebahungu batandatu ntabwo tuzabibagirwa Nyirabagenzi n'Abaritazari ntabwo tuzakwibagirwa Mukanyonga Mbaraga n'umuryango ntabwo tuzabibagirwa reka twibuke aho Padiri Bosiko yavukaga ndakwibuka kuri impuzu na Nishaka Anizia baguye ku Kabuye ku Gisagara ngenda ha Innocent nabo mwari kumwe muri paruwasi ya Mugombwa duhora tubibuka ndakwibuka Musonera Jean Marie Vianney waguye mu marembo ya Mugombwa reka twibuke umusozi wa Dahwe twirindaga gutera ibuye ubu habaye amatongo reka twibuke umusozi mwiza wariho imfura nyinshi cyane witwa Icyumba ndakwibuka Vincent ndakwibuka Christopher n'abana bawe bose reka twibuke abega mwari muzi bose ndakwibuka Nzamwita n'abana be bose Munyensange Emmanuel Habiyambere Thomas na Mukantwari Estera duhora tubibuka Imana izabarengera reka twibuke aho Padiri Nyangezi nawe yavukaga mana yanjye imfura z'Icyahinda zirashira ya Nyaruguru aho ni wabo wa Padiri Nyangezi bazicira inyagasozi nuko warukaziri kwa Rutamu baraharimarima babicira Igasasa babicira Ikibumba Inkakwa no mu Karamba barashira babarasira ku musozi wa Nyakizu baraharimbura Isa Burunduru no kuwa Maranda ndavuga bene Rushingwa nkiko barashira bajyana nabi Gashiru Irunyinya Impare n'Igihinda muyaga ntituzibagirwa Jamawo nadusabe pasikaziya n'urubyaro rwanyu bene nyagaha ko harazimye bose ahasigaye musiganuza akanyaru akavuguto n'agatobwe mana utubarize aho ngaho reka nsubire i Nyanza ndakwibuka nzaba mwita Augustin ndakwibuka Bizimana Karaveri reka twibukiye Munyawera Rurangirwa wo ku Mugonzi ntabwo twakwibagirwa reka twibuke Kabanyana wari imfura cyane Kankindi n'abahungu be Jean Pierre na Janvier Eric ntabwo tuzakwibagirwa Teresa mama wa Margarita ntabwo twakwibagirwa duhora twibuka ibitaramo byawe reka twibuke imfura z'Imwima Faustini uko wataramiraga abana bawe ntabwo twakwibagirwa Munderi Muhamudu Mikaire Micheli Mushakamba Gasherebuka na Ruhamiriza ntabwo twabibagirwa reka twibuke ibyabereye Imwima iyo uhageze ucika umugongo mana yanjye uzabarengere ntitwakwibagirwa muzehe rwa Nyagapfumu n'imfura zose z'Imwima zatwikiwe mu nzu duhora twibuka Kayumba Alex wari umucuruzi n'umuryango we Gahongayire ntabwo twakwibagirwa Kayitesi Jeanne na Nyirankwavu Maria Kagurube Karori ntabwo twakwibagirwa Karangwa Karisa Murorunkwere Anonsiyata ntituzakwibagirwa reka twibuke Sebukayire ntabwo twakwibagirwa Hoziyana wari imfura cyane ntabwo twakwibagirwa mpora nibuka iteka Mushumba Faustini w'Imwima uko yajyaga afasha aba bamwishe
Sorry. Hello. Good afternoon. My name is Bosco Sebabi. I'm going to be your MC this afternoon with my colleague.
Hello, everyone. This is Noor from the Embassy of Rwanda.
Honorable Minister, who hasn't yet arrived, we are going to begin the program, and when he arrives, we are going to welcome him. Excellencies, ambassadors, high commissioners, all members of the diplomatic corps, members of the private sector, friends and colleagues from Afrexim Bank and Badea, and all protocols observed. Fellow Rwandans, ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome you here today and thank you also for honoring our invitation to be with us this afternoon to honor the memory of the victims of the 1994 Rwandan genocide against the Tutsis. Your presence is a clear testimony that you have given us your shoulders to cry on. To cry on during this period when we grieve our brothers and sisters, our fathers and mothers, uncles and aunties who perished 30 years ago. Let me also thank the government of Egypt, the Egyptian government, for the support and hospitality to all of us who live here. Thank you very much. This year, Rwanda commemorates the 30th anniversary of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. It's a time to pause, to reflect and honor the memory of over 1 million people. 1 million were lost in 100 days at the hands of bad leadership. Was a culmination. There are many killing outbreaks that preceded that. We had 1959, when most of our parents fled the country, 1973, and in the 1980s. At each stage, Tutsis lost lives, and no one has ever managed to put a number to that. Kwibuka is a Kinyarwanda word that means remembrance. But it's just more than remembrance. To us, it's a powerful testament to the resilience of the Rwandan spirit. our journey of healing, unity, and reconciliation. To quote President Kagame a few weeks ago, it's a time for grief, but also gratitude in equal measure. Gratitude for where we came from and where we are.
السادة الحضور الكرام، السادة ممثلي وزارة الدفاع المصرية ووزارة الخارجية المصرية، السادة ممثلي الكنيسة القبطية الأرثوذكسية والأزهر الشريف، أهلاً ومرحباً بكم جميعاً. برحب برؤساء البعثات الدبلوماسية وبأعضاء السلك الدبلوماسي جميعاً، السادة أعضاء القطاع الخاص، وأيضاً الأصدقاء والزملاء من أفريكزم بنك. وأخيراً برحب بالإخوة الروانديين اللي ليا الشرف إن أنا بمثلهم النهاردة بصفتي عضو من ضمن سفارة رواندا بالقاهرة، وليا الشرف إني أتحدث عن إحياء الذكرى 30 باسمهم وأنقل لحضراتكم شعورهم الخاص في هذا اليوم. اسمحوا لي أن أرحب بكم جميعاً اليوم وأشكركم عن تلبية الدعوة. تواجدكم معنا مهم جداً أثناء إحياء ذكرى ضحايا الإبادة الجماعية في رواندا اللي وقعت سنة 1994. عادة كانت بيتم إحيائها يوم 7 إبريل من كل عام، لكن تم تأجيلها العام ده احتفالاً بشهر رمضان المبارك. اسمحوا لي أن أشكر الحكومة المصرية وممثليها على الدعم والضيافة اللي قدموها لنا. في هذا العام تحيي رواندا الذكرى 30 للإبادة الجماعية اللي وقعت سنة 1994 ضد التوتسي، فهو ده الوقت المناسب للتوقف والتأمل وتكريم ذكرى أكثر من 1,000,000 شهيد رواندي فقدوا أرواحهم خلال 100 يوم على التوالي على أيدي القادة الفاسدين. كويبوكا كلمة باللغة الكينيا رواندية وهي اللغة الأم برواندا، تعني الذكرى أو تذكر، لكن في الحقيقة هي أكبر من إنها تكون مجرد ذكرى، فهي شهادة قوية على قدرة رواندا ورحلتها للشفاء والوحدة والمصالحة. وعلى حد تعبير فخامة رئيس جمهورية رواندا بول كاغامي، إنه وقت الشعور بالحزن والامتنان معاً بقدر متساوي. شكراً لحضراتكم. دلوقتي النشيد الوطني لجمهورية مصر العربية وجمهورية رواندا، اتفضلوا.
May sit.
Thank you.
As everything, we're going to put this event in God's hands, and we're going to have some prayers. First, we'll have Muslim prayers by Dr. Mohammed Abo.
Yes. دلوقتي هنقوم بالدعاء على أرواح الشهداء اللي فقدوا سنة 1994 مع دكتور محمد أبو زيد الأمين ممثل الأزهر الشريف والأمين العام لبيت العائلة المصرية. تفضل سيادة الدكتور.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على جميع رسل الله أجمعين. على جميع رسل الله أجمعين، نبي الله نوح وإبراهيم وموسى وعيسى، وخاتمهم محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم، وخاتم الرسل الكرام أحمد، وجده الخليل إبراهيم، والروح عيسى، والروح عيسى نوح والكليم، فالأنبياء فالملائك الأولى، أجلهم جبريل عند ذي العلا. السادة الأفاضل الكرام، في هذه الفعالية التي تعد من أصدق الفعاليات، تعد يوم لتكريم الشهداء. الشهداء لهم مكانة ولهم منزلة. الشهداء في ذمة المولى تبارك وتعالى. وها نحن اليوم يوم الذكرى، يوم ذكرى ويوم الوفاء لشهداء هذه البلد، شهداء رواندا. 1,000,000 شهيد فقدوا أرواحهم في سبيل وطنهم، لأن من مات أي قتل دون ماله فهو شهيد، من قتل دون نفسه فهو شهيد، من قتل دون أولاده فهو شهيد، من قتل لأجل بلده ووطنه فهو شهيد. ونود الإحاطة إلى أن من المبادئ التي جاء بها الإسلام وجاءت بها جميع الأديان إنما هو حب الأوطان ومدى التمسك. وهؤلاء الذين نحتفل الآن بذكراهم شهداء ضحوا بأرواحهم وضحوا بأنفسهم من أجل إحياء وطنهم ومن أجل إحياء بلدهم. وإن من هذا المكان الذي يقام فيه هذه الاحتفالية ندعو الله تبارك وتعالى أن يتغمضهم برحمته، وأن يسكنهم فسيح جناته، وأن يجعلهم يوم القيامة عند الله لهم الجزاء ولهم الأجر العظيم لقاء ما قدموه. فهم قد ضحوا بأرواحهم لكي يعيش شعب رواندا، لكي يعيش من يقوم على أرض رواندا، ضحوا بأرواحهم. وهكذا فعل الشهداء. ولذا نجد أن الله تعالى جعلهم أحياء، حيث قال: ولا تحسبن الذين قتلوا في سبيل الله أمواتا بل أحياء عند ربهم يرزقون. نسأل الله أن يتغمضهم برحمته، ونسأل الله أن يسكنهم فسيح جناته، وأن يتقبلهم. وإن هذه الذكرى التي تقام اليوم من باب الوفاء، من باب وفاء شعب رواندا، من باب وفاء حكومة رواندا بهؤلاء الذين استشهدوا من أجل أن يبقى من هم على أرض رواندا. هذه الذكرى التي تقام في هذا المكان من أرض مصر. نشكر جميع الحضور ونتقدم لهم بالتقدير لوفائهم من القيادات التنفيذية بجمهورية مصر العربية، وفي ظل وفي عهد فخامة السيد الرئيس عبد الفتاح السيسي رئيس الجمهورية. نسأل الله جل علاه: اللهم تغمض الشهداء برحمتك، اللهم أسكنهم فسيح جناتك، اللهم لقاء ما قدموه وما ضحوا بأنفسهم وما ضحوا بأرواحهم، لقاء أن يعيش هؤلاء الموجودين على أرض رواندا. نسألك اللهم أن تجزيهم خير الجزاء، إنك يا مولانا على كل شيء قدير. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم.
We would like to thank you Dr. Muhammad for his prayers. نسأل الله أن يتقبل الدعوات للشهداء. ودلوقتي هيشرفنا القس داوود لمعي كاهن كنيسة ماري مرقس بكليوباترا. Please welcome with me Father Dawood Lamai, the priest of St. Mark's Church of Cleopatra, for the Coptic prayers.
In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, one God, Amen. Thank you, Lord, for bringing us tonight to celebrate this honorable day, to honor our family members in humanity, because they gave their lives as a sacrifice for the love of their people and their country. Please, Lord, bless us all, bless all the countries, Egypt, Rwanda, and all African countries, and everywhere in the whole world. Help us to spread the spirit of peace, wisdom, justice everywhere. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. Through Christ Jesus our Lord. For thine is the kingdom, the power, the glory, forever. Amen. God bless you all.
Thank you Father داوود لمعي. بنشكر أبونا داوود لمعي ونسأل الله أن يتقبل صلواتنا ودعواتنا على أرواح الشهداء.
Thank you very much, Bishop. We can both Banyarwanda bari
Yes, please.
ururimi rw'icyongereza gusa n'icyarabu kubera dukeka yuko mwese mu byumva byombi kandi abashyitsi dufite bumva icyongereza n'icyarabu gusa, ariko turumva yuko ibyo mu byumva kandi mugiye kudufasha kugira ngo basobanurire abandi bashobora kuba batumva icyongereza cyangwa icyarabu. Murakoze cyane. Light a candle, a flame of hope. Maybe we'll just give some instructions on how to do it. There is a button underneath, black. Just switch it on. And then,
please. For the Arabic speaker, please. أتمنى حضراتكم كله ينير الشمعة أو الشعلة لأنها الرمز الوطني للإبادة الجماعية.
And then we'll stand up to take a moment of silence to remember our lost brothers and sisters.
أتمنى نقف جميعا دقيقة على أرواح الشهداء. تفضل. Thank you. Thank you. Please have a seat. تفضلوا.
So.
سيادة السفير دان مونيوزا وسيادة السفير أحمد صفوت.
Right, Ambassador and Madam to come and light the candle.
هيقوموا بإنارة الشعلة كويبوكا وهي الرمز الوطني للإبادة الجماعية.
Just like this. Just press the hands. May the souls of the departed rest in peace. We are now going to watch a documentary, Rwanda from Despair to Hope. Please, I invite you to.
This is Rwanda today. This is Rwanda today. A country transformed over the past 30 years. This new Rwanda has been forged out of the ashes of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi, an event that shocked the world. Our story offers a warning of what can happen when political leaders preach division and hatred triumphs over humanity. But it also tells us what can be achieved when a determined people fight together for unity and reconciliation. This new Rwanda has been forged out of the ashes of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi, an event that shocked the world. Our story offers a warning of what can happen when political leaders preach division and hatred triumphs over humanity. But it also tells us what can be achieved when a determined people fight together. This is our journey, told by those who have traveled together as we have moved from despair to hope. For much of the world, Rwanda first existed in 1994. And yet, our story starts long before this. Before colonialism, Rwandans had a rich culture, one language, and the people were united around their own organic form of governance. This all changed when colonial powers chose to control Rwandans by ethnicity, creating division and conflict where none had existed previously. This division grew into hatred and violence, culminating in the genocide against the Tutsi, where over 1 million people were murdered in 100 days.
zamu zifite ubuhiri zifite imipanga aho mu isoko zibyina nta ukanda burende bahiga abatutsi mbese mu buryo bukomeye
maze kubona bikomeye abantu batwika abantu barya inka abantu batemagurana za bariyeri bazishyizeho yewe n'abana na madamu tujya kwa databukwe bari bafite imbaraga nyinshi abo bana rero bahamaze iminsi mike hanyuma musaza wa madamu se wabo ufindimwe na se n'abandi b'abavandimwe babo nibo bafashe iya mbere nta wundi wivanzemo babajyana muri Nyabarongo barabaheka baragenda babata muri Nyabarongo barangije barataha.
Muri Genocide 94 banyiciye imiryango yanjye mu bana 9 nabyaye hasigayemo twana tubiri
abana ba Mariya babiri n'umugabo wa Mariya abo bose badusanze kuri bariyeri twe turagera kubica.
Abagabo bacu babazamuye mu ngo bababwira ngo tugende tujye kwirinda ariko bo bazi ikigiye kuvamo. Bahera ku mugabo wanjye kuko bari kuri liste bahita bamutsinda aho ngaho haruguru y'urugo gatoya barabarashe bamurashe amasasu umwe aravuga ngo n'uyu sha mbaye hanuyu.
This genocide was long planned by the government of the time, who used education and the media to divide Rwandans, creating the conditions for the genocide to happen. The preparation of the genocide and of the 100 days of killings happened in full view of the world, who stood by, watched, and did nothing. No one came to Rwanda's rescue. The killings were only stopped when the Rwanda Patriotic Front overthrew the genocidal government. From that moment, Rwandans began the long, hard road to recovery, healing, and reconciliation.
Mu mwaka w'ibihumbi 2004 nibwo nafashe icyemezo cyo gusaba imbabazi Mariya. Mfati umwanzuro numvaga nti se wenda yaba ntari namusanzeyo kuko numvaga mfite ubwoba. Nkongera nkavuga nti se ubundi amaherezo yazaba yahe. Ngize amahirwe rero ubwo nuvuga ngo Mariya asanze ariyo. Nibwo namubwiye nti uko biri kose urabizi ngiye ndi mu bantu nyine bakwiciye ariko noneho ndagira ngo umpe imbabazi.
Byagiye bigenda gahoro uko dusabana, uko duhura, uko tuvugana, uko twigishwa, hace mu nyigisho nyinshi cyane. Ntabwo byari byoroshye.
Hari ahantu neza nemereye neza ko imbabazi yazimpaye. Narangiye ngira ku isantere ahantu mbambonye Mariya, naramuhamagaye turasangira, mbona aremeye turasangira. Muri njye uwo munsi numvise aribwo nafunguwe, numvise aribwo mvuye muri gereza.
To heal the wounds of a nation where neighbors killed neighbors, and even some family members turned on each other, the new Rwanda had to find a way to deliver justice for the victims, which could manage the scale of the crimes, and could also heal the torn social fabric of our society. So, we turned to our history for the answer. We set up Gacaca tribunals, a traditional form of community justice where citizens elected Inyanga Mugayo, men and women of integrity in their communities, who heard almost 2 million genocide cases. This not only ensured that justice was delivered, but also established the truth of the killings. Reconciliation could begin at last.
Gacaca zimaze kugeramo abaturage tugakorana, bari abafunguye bakaza bagashinjanya. Kanaka uwe kanaka twajyanye mu gitero, uwe kanaka twajyanye mu gitero, ngo kuko abakoze genocide, ngo kuko bagaragaye.
Abenshi rero muri Gacaca byatumye bamenya uko ababo bishwe, barihangana barabyakira, bamenya naho bajuguwe.
We asked that the genocide survivors make huge sacrifices by putting aside their desire for retribution in favor of forgiveness and reconciliation. And we asked all Rwandans to leave the ethnic divisions in the past and embrace a future of Ndumunyarwanda, where we are all Rwandan.
Nabaga muri CNRD, naje mfite ipeti rya General de Brigade. Kuyo dufata icyemezo tukava muri CNRD tukaza mu Rwanda, nuko twari tumaze kumenya neza ko leta y'u Rwanda ifite gahunda nziza yo kunga abanyarwanda, ikangurira abanyarwanda aho bari hose batahuke mu mahoro, kandi waza ikakwakira neza nk'umunyarwanda, ugatura aho ushaka utuje utekanye nta kibazo gihari. Muri ADF igihe mazemo nabonye nta vangura ribamo, umuntu akora akazi ashinzwe nta kindi.
Rwanda is still a work in progress. It is up to the next generations to learn the true story of our past, to protect against genocide, denial, and hate, and keep the memory and the lessons of our history alive.
En fait, le négationnisme est en pleine expansion sur Internet, sur les réseaux sociaux, puis sur Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. Le discours n'a pas changé. Certaines personnes vont par exemple prétendre que le génocide n'a pas été planifié, mais que les gens se sont mis en colère et ont commencé à tuer. Il faut qu'on soit plus nombreux à protéger la vérité, à protéger l'histoire du génocide contre les Tutsis sur ces plateformes-là.
We have made progress across every sector. creating a secure and ambitious country which offers opportunity and hope to all Rwandans.
byahindutse ni byinshi nyuma ya jenoside yakorewe abatutsi umwana ariko akabona buruse hatitawe ngo n'uwo kwande.
Ndi umukobwa ukora mu bijyanye n'ubuvuzi ndetse nkaba ndi no muri siporo kandi byose nkabikora neza. Rero umwana w'umukobwa icyo namubwira ni uko turashoboye muri rusange, ibyo twajyamo byose dushoboye kubikora neza ndetse turanahagarariwe hirya no hino kugeza ku mudugudu, turahagarariwe n'ijwi ryacu rishobora kumvikana.
For our friends around the world, we thank you for continuing to stand with us and ask you to share Rwanda's story and what we've learned about division and reconciliation at a time when the world seems increasingly more fractured. Rwanda's experience is one of unimaginable loss, but it is also the story of a people determined, of resilience, of sacrifice, and of rebirth. Rwanda today is proof that out of the depths of despair can come great hope.
في تقديم بحوث عن الإبادة الجماعية بعمق شديد ليقدموا للعالم الحقائق اللي توصلنا لها اليوم. ومعانا هترك حضراتكم مع محاضرة يلقيها العالم والباحث السيد فريدريك جولوبا، هيشرفنا دلوقتي على المنصة.
Fred, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, John Bosco. I would like to start by thanking His Excellency, the Ambassador of Rwanda, for inviting me to give this speech or to talk about Rwanda. The task I've been given is quite complicated because post-genocide Rwanda is a difficult place to understand. There's a lot that is said about the country that, in my opinion, doesn't reflect reality. And I'm going to try as much as I can to give you my understanding of what post-genocide Rwanda looks like based on a fairly long period of research there. Your Excellency, Excellencies, ambassadors, members of the diplomatic corps, friends of Rwanda, Rwandans who are here today, thank you very much for turning up. Now, I would like to start with some background. I am originally Ugandan, although I subsequently became a citizen of Rwanda. How did I come into contact with Rwanda? It was purely by accident. By 1994, when the genocide against the Tutsi happened, I was a young doctoral student in Europe. And like many people, I didn't pay much attention to what was happening in Rwanda. Now, for me, it was partly because I had many friends from South Africa with whom I was studying. And as you know, the genocide took place alongside what was happening in South Africa. And so it took a long time for me to actually realize what had happened in Rwanda. When I went there 6 years later in 2000 and came face to face with the horrors of what had happened as we saw in the documentary. Now, not only did I get to learn about the horrors, but I also learned about the remarkable reconciliation efforts that were taking place in the country at the time. But even more important for me, as a student of politics, there was a very interesting political experiment going on in Rwanda. And I'll tell you about that experiment as I go along. But before I start my presentation, I would like to point out just 4 things to set the background to this. Now, the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi was not the first episode of mass killing in Rwanda, although some people think that it was. Secondly, it was not the result of inexplicable random violence, as some people are wont to claim. Neither was it an example of inter-ethnic violence. Rather, what it was the targeting of one group by members of another group who wanted to exterminate them, and thus the terminology that we normally use of genocide against the Tutsi, because it was the Tutsi community that were targeted for extermination. Now, I would like to start my presentation with some background. Now, Rwanda was at first run by France as a colony of France, but then later on it was put under Belgian control by the United Nations. Now, during Belgian colonial rule, Rwandans were deliberately divided. Now, what had been social classes defined by economic occupation became tribes. Now, Tutsis, who were one group of the 3, whether they were poor or non-poor, were elevated to a status of superiority following what the Belgians called the Hamitic hypothesis. And this included identification of so-called Tutsi, people of Tutsi ethnicity by the measuring of noses. You may have seen the image that was projected on the screen a short while ago. and the measuring of foreheads, and then somehow the Tutsis were assigned foreign origins because they seemed to be of non-African origin. Subsequent to this, they were given privileges, including formal education, chiefly positions, and then enabled to achieve faster social mobility. The Hutus, on the other hand, regardless of their social standing, were relegated to an inferior status, apparently because they were not as intelligent as their Tutsi compatriots. Now the Batwa, or the Twa, were then confined to the bottom of the pile. Now these things had unpredicted consequences, among them the growth of ethnic grievances. Now there is an image showing, this image shows how people were identified and distinguished from each other. Depending on the length of your nose or the shape of your forehead, you could be categorized as Tutsi and therefore given privileges, all Hutu, all Twa. Now, from being given privileges, the Tutsis then turned out to be the class, because they were better educated, who led the independence movement. Now, of course, the Belgian colonial authorities did not take kindly to this turn of events. And so they reacted by inciting the Hutu majority against the Tutsi community as a whole, and then designated them as foreign interlopers who should not be allowed to lead Rwanda after independence. Now, in 1959, there was something that is normally referred to as the 1959 social revolution. Now, this so-called revolution was marked by intercommunal violence, in which the authorities, the Belgian colonial authorities, encouraged or instigated anti-Tutsi violence. Now, 1959 then marked the beginning of flight into exile by a significant number of Tutsis who left for neighboring countries. Now, when independence happened in 1962, it happened amidst renewed massacres and more flight of Tutsis into what would turn out to be 3 decades of exile. Other massacres then took place in 1964, 1973, again driving more Tutsis into exile alongside their Hutu friends and relatives who chose to leave the country with them. Now, thereafter, for 30 years, these people had fled their country, languished in exile amidst indifference from the international community to the hundreds of thousands of stateless Rwandans living in neighboring countries. Now, of course, as refugees, they faced a lot of challenges. Now, these challenges ignited in them the hunger to return home, or for those that had left Rwanda as adults, it kept this hunger alive. It was in these circumstances of longing to go home that the movement to return the exiles home, the Rwanda Patriotic Front, was eventually born. Now, during independence, members of the Tutsi community who had remained in Rwanda faced constant discrimination, exclusion, harassment, and violence. But this was not the only way in which Rwanda was divided. In other words, Rwanda was not divided simply between Hutus and Tutsis. There were also active divisions based on regions. Between 1962 and 1971, Rwanda was ruled by Southern Hutus, or dominated by Southern Hutus. And then from 1971 to 1990, you had domination by Northern Hutus. So there were also divisions along regional lines within the Hutu community itself. Now, pre-genocide Rwanda was therefore a highly divided society in which large sections of society were treated and also felt as second or third class citizens. Now, during this time, of course, there were refugees who wanted to return to Rwanda, as I pointed out earlier, but this was not encouraged by the then government because apparently Rwanda was full and couldn't accommodate the refugees. Now, as I pointed out, the refugees were determined to return to their country, whether through peaceful means or not. Now, what was politics like in pre-genocide Rwanda? Politics in pre-genocide Rwanda was organized around a single party, the MRND, to which all Rwandans were required by law to belong. Now, the majority of the elite, the powerful military, security, and political elite of the time were from mainly one region, the north. They were from a few interconnected families with a family-based inner circle, otherwise called a kazu, or small house, in whose hands decision-making was concentrated. Now, as I pointed out earlier, while the refugees wanted to return home, the government told them they couldn't come back and that they should seek the citizenship of the countries to which they had fled. Now, throughout this period, of course, they were pressing to return. Now, for the refugees, returning home was a privilege or a right that they were not willing to give up. Now, at first, they had wanted to do this through negotiation. Now, when negotiations failed, war became inevitable. And this now led to the birth of the Rwanda Patriotic Army, which was the armed wing established by the Rwanda Patriotic Front to realize the objective of taking the refugees back home. And so in October 1990, war began when the Rwanda Patriotic Army attacked Rwanda from across the border in Uganda, where the majority of the members of Rwanda Patriotic Front had been exiled. Now, this marked the road to war and to the genocide. Now, the war broke out within a very particular context. Now, for many years, the then government had carried out a concerted campaign of demonizing the Tutsi community and sowing fear among members of the Hutu majority that if these people returned to Rwanda, they would be treated badly and oppressed and dispossessed and so on and so forth. Now, there was also the idea that the majority had a natural right to rule, and this was deeply ingrained. And the reverse side of this idea was that the members of the Tutsi community should never be allowed to take power again. If they took power, they would kill, oppress, and dispossess the rest. In the minds of the power elite of the time, there was only one way to ensure that the Tutsis did not take power again, and this was to exterminate them and therefore leave no one to tell the story. Now, this made it imperative to organize killings and easy for the government and other extremists to mobilize ordinary people to kill their neighbors and their relatives. Now, a Rwandan academic has studied this and written a book entitled The Popular Genocide, now just to capture the extent to which so many Rwandans took part in killing their neighbors and their relatives. In the end, over 1 million people perished as the international community looked on. Now, what has happened since the genocide? It's now 30 years since the genocide ended, and that is what we are here to mark today. Now, after the genocide, the government that took over that country turned almost everything upside down. And this takes us back to the political experiment that I mentioned earlier, which I'm going to illustrate as we go along. Now, 30 years on today, as we look at Rwanda, Rwanda has the 7th most effective government in the world, according to the World Economic Forum. Rwanda has also come top consistently in East Africa in the ease of doing business and as a leading reformer. Rwanda also in the Great Lakes region is known for having the lowest levels of corruption. Rwanda has one of the most extensive coverages of health insurance to the tune of 96% of the population. 96% of Rwandans are covered by health insurance. Nearly 95% of women in Rwanda give birth in a health facility. Now, this is quite in contrast to what happens in other countries where women tend to give birth to their children at home, which endangers the lives of children who are born in the hands of traditional birth attendants. Now, between the year 2000 to 2011, the number of child deaths per year in Rwanda fell by 62.8%. Life expectancy in post-genocide Rwanda is at 69.6 years, and this is the highest in the East African community. Rwanda also has the largest police and is the 3rd largest police and troop contributor to the UN and AU peacekeeping operations. This started in Darfur in Sudan in 2004. They sent police to Haiti, they sent troops to Mali, they now have troops in the Central African Republic and in South Sudan. Rwanda is also a leading player in restoring security to countries under threat of insurgency via bilateral arrangements. And the Central African Republic and Mozambique are 2 examples of this. Now, the deployments of the Rwanda Defense Force and its activities, including peacekeeping, are enshrined in the law that governs the armed forces. Under Article 10 of Section 2 of the RDF law, peacekeeping, peace building, and humanitarian missions are stated as core tasks of the Rwanda Defense Force. Now, this raises the question, from the disaster of the genocide against the Tutsi 30 years ago, how did Rwanda get to where it has got today? Now, post-genocide Rwanda's widely acclaimed rapid progress is sometimes characterized as a miracle. Now, it's not a miracle. It is the product of deliberate efforts by the people who lead that country to change the fortunes of Rwanda. And I would like to argue that this would not have been achievable in the absence of a broad elite consensus around the rules and values that were chosen to guide reconstruction and state building. Now, when we talk of building consensus, what do we actually mean? For me, as a student of politics, the consensus-building approach to politics in Rwanda is one of the most fascinating things that I've had the chance to study for the years that I've been studying Rwanda, which is now 24 years. Now, before I take you through this experiment, I would like also to dispel some of the conventional wisdoms that we hear about Rwanda. One is that Rwanda is a one-party state. Is it a one-party state? We will see that it isn't. The other one is that the president of Rwanda, President Paul Kagame, is an autocrat who holds power and makes decisions without input from others. Thirdly, Rwanda is presented as a country under Tutsi domination, with some people claiming that there has been a Tutsification of national leadership. What does the reality demonstrate? Now, Article 54 of the National Constitution of Rwanda of 2003, which was amended in 2015, provides for a multi-party system. Now, despite the representation of Rwanda as a one-party state, Rwanda actually has 11 political parties. Article 59 established the National Forum of Political Organizations, and I will describe to you shortly what this NFPO is. Now, Article 62 of the Constitution provides for power sharing. Now, what does this power sharing look like? The President of the country, the Speaker of the Chamber of Deputies, cannot come from the same political organization, according to the Constitution of Rwanda. Cabinet ministers in post-genocide Rwanda, unlike in pre-genocide Rwanda, are selected from political organizations on the basis of the seats that each holds in Parliament, in the Chamber of Deputies, which is the lower chamber of Parliament. Now, regardless of how big or powerful a political organization is, if it holds the majority seats in the Chamber of Deputies, it is barred by the national constitution from having more than 50% of the cabinet. Only 50% of the ministers can go to that political party, regardless of the number of seats it has in Parliament, and the rest go to other political parties, and also to people who may be appointed for their capacities or qualifications, regardless of whether they belong to a political party or not. Now, in the immediate aftermath of the genocide, in 1994, when the RPF took power, it established a government of national unity comprising all the political groups that were active in the country at the time. The MRND, which had been the ruling party, and the CDR were excluded, and this was because they were seen as bearing the greatest responsibility for planning and executing the genocide. Now, the establishment of the government of national unity conformed to the broad outlines of the Arusha Accords, which all parties had signed. Now, it is important to note that the victory of the RPF marked it as the most powerful political organization after the genocide. It was the only armed organization, and it could have chosen to run Rwanda alone and excluded all the other parties. Now, if it had chosen that route, I think it would have been too risky, as there would have been too many rivals on the outside making trouble and fomenting instability. And so the choice made to share power with the parties that were existing at the time. Now, after taking power in 1994, it was decided that there would be a 10-year transition during which there would be no new political formations established. Now, this was followed, of course, by some contestations, and these came to a head between 1999 and 2001, when some of the previous political elite who had stayed in the country chose to start agitating for multi-party politics during the transition, which led to the exit from Rwanda of some of these people into exile. Now, one of the processes during the period of transition was the search for homegrown solutions. Now, there was a year-long process of discussion at President's office, led by the then President Bizimungu, every Saturday of the month. Now, these negotiations led to the establishment of the Gacaca courts, of which we heard during the documentary that we watched. The discussions also led to a decision to decentralize power and create local governments and give them responsibility and resources. Now, a decision was also made to incorporate traditional practices such as imihigo and ubudehe, and we shall see what these mean, into modern administrative practices. Ultimately, this process of searching for homegrown solutions culminated in the establishment and cementing of a political system seen by participants as based on national experiences and lessons learned, and driven by the imperative to maintain a consensus and shun adversarial politics. Now, I spoke earlier of the National Forum of Political Organizations. Now, the NFPO was established under the Constitution of 2003 as a space for self-expression and participation by registered political parties in the political management of the country, regardless of whether they were represented in parliament or not. Now, what this means is before 2017, which is when we had the previous elections, out of the 11 political parties that were in the country, only 9 were represented in parliament. Now, the 2 smallest parties were not represented in parliament, but they were members of the National Forum of Political Organizations among the other parties. Now, the NFPO is where political parties meet to discuss some of the most contentious issues in the country. Now, the mission of the platform is to ensure national political dialogue, consensus building, and the promotion of national cohesion. Now, the mandate of the NFPO is to maintain political dialogue and transparency among political parties, and also to create public trust in political parties. It also helps building capacity for registered political parties to enable them to pursue their core functions. It supports political parties in resolving internal conflicts, but this happens only upon request by a party that might be racked by divisions. Now, the NFPO has guiding principles. One is the promotion of democratic values and national consensus, fighting genocide ideology and divisionism, respect for independence of each member organization, freedom of expression for member organizations, and equality among all political parties regardless of their size. Now, among its internal rules and regulations is that every member of this forum, regardless of size, and some of these parties are very, very small, but each of the parties has equal voting powers, and they are each represented by 4 members, 2 of which must be women. Now, decision-making in the General Assembly of the National Forum for Political Organizations is on the basis of absolute consensus. If a decision has to be made and there is a party that does not agree with that decision, no decision will be made until all the parties have agreed that that is the right decision to make. In case there is a disagreement, parties continue to meet until they have formed a consensus about which direction to take. If there is no consensus, meetings go on and on and on until there has been agreement. Now, there is usually, I would like to show you the list of the parties, and the reason why I wanted you to see this list is because there is usually a claim made that the other political parties are satellite parties of the ruling party, that the ruling party has established parties which it can then use as some kind of camouflage for its dominance. But as you can see, some of the parties were established before 1994, before the RPF took power, so it couldn't have been the one behind the establishment. The others were established fairly recently, and as you can see, the 2 bottom parties, these are the smallest parties which were not in parliament until 2017. Now, today, all these 11 political parties are in parliament. And as you can see, all of these, the ones that you see in red, those are the ones that could be considered in a conventional system to be opposition parties. But all those that are in black have an official coalition operating under the Rwanda Patriotic Front. So in essence, we have 7 parties in one coalition and 4 parties that could style themselves as opposition parties. Now, looking at Parliament, the Parliament of Rwanda has two chambers, the Chamber of Deputies with 80 members and the Senate with 26 members. Each member of Parliament represents the country as a whole. We don't have constituency MPs. So we vote for parties, not individuals. So every member of Parliament represents the entire country, not a specific constituency. The decision by a member of Parliament regarding how to vote on any matter is a purely personal decision. There are no party whips in the Parliament of Rwanda. So members decide freely which way to vote on any matter. Members of Parliament are not subject to instruction by their parties in how to vote on matters arising in Parliament. At the same time, members of Parliament in Rwanda are not eligible to be ministers. So you can't be a member of Parliament and be a minister at the same time. No member of Parliament may be prosecuted, pursued, arrested, detained, or judged for his or her opinion expressed in the course of voting in Parliament. Now, we also have local governments which operate in a very specific way. As I indicated, following the search for homegrown solutions, it was decided to create locally elected local governments to which power was centralized, responsibilities given, and resources extended. And these local governments, unlike elsewhere in Africa where decentralization took place under the influence of donors, this was Rwanda's own initiative in order to create local governments that would manage the process of encouraging citizens to take part in decision-making. Now, the key objective of creating this local government system was to ensure inclusive governance or political inclusion. Now, it meant that with the creation of these local governments, leaders would be elected and that they would be accountable to the people they led, in contrast to the pre-genocide period when local leaders were appointed by the central government. Now, it also meant that public servants working at local level would be overseen by elected leaders and not by supervisors in the national capital. Now, these local governments are also charged with the responsibility to mobilize communities to include people in decision-making, including planning and implementation of policy. Now, what drives delivery by local governments in Rwanda? And here I would like to point out that from my experience studying local governments across a number of African countries, Rwanda has one of the most effective local governments. Now, what drives the extraordinary levels of delivery by local governments in Rwanda? One of them is what we call imihigo, or performance contracts. Now, performance contracts are signed between the president and district mayors, and these contracts specify what mayors are going to do in their districts in a particular year, and mayors are held to account for the promises they make. Now, we also have inter-district competition, and related, these inter-district competitions put pressure local governments and their mayors to deliver on the promises they have made, and citizens pay very keen attention to the promises that mayors make, and usually mayors who fail to deliver are forced to resign. Local governments in Rwanda, unlike other countries where decentralization has happened, do not enjoy complete autonomy. Their autonomy is limited, and this enables the central government to not only supervise them, but also exercise a great deal of oversight to ensure that they deliver on their mandates, but that also the development that they deliver is equitable. There are, however, multiple challenges, as one would imagine. But the fact of the matter is that the contrast between local governments today, which are elected, which include people in decision-making, is rather sharp compared to the pre-genocide period. Now, in conclusion, Rwanda has made the kind of progress it has made because of deliberate choices made to reject, first of all, adversarial contestation. The conventional multi-party politics that we see elsewhere in Africa has been rejected emphatically in Rwanda, and instead they have opted for consensus building. This has been key in ensuring adherence between the political elite to the pursuit of a single national vision in the interest of building what in Rwanda we say, the Rwanda we all want. It has ensured that no energies or resources go into dispensing patronage, buying off political rivals and opponents, or even votes, and also avoidance of politics-driven financial corruption. There is a lot of emphasis on accountability at both national and local levels via citizen engagement, performance contracts, and Rwanda's very remarkable zero tolerance for corruption. The limited autonomy for local governments ensures that policy formulation, standard setting, and supervision and monitoring are insisted on by the center to make sure that local authorities do those things that benefit the citizens rather than people in positions of authority. Now, the prohibition of party politics at local government level means that leaders focus on delivering development and services, not on political contestation. Now, I would like to explain this. Local leaders in Rwanda are not elected on the basis of political affiliation. Local leaders are elected on the basis of their own merit, on the basis of judgment made by the people they lead, and this absence of inter-party competition at local level means that leaders focus more on delivering things that are of benefit to their citizens rather than on political contests. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for listening to me.
So Fred has given us a background to genocide, how this happened, and usually how in the world, how this ideology has came up. And it's shown us what Rwanda has built from ashes, from despair to where it is today. Maybe there could be a question or two on this, but we'll restrict this to only 2 questions for him to be able to elucidate. Thank you very much. If there is none, we can let Frederick, and thank you so much. We've listened to the insights into this whole matter, and he's still with us. Thank you very much.
wanze kwira twibuka ijoro ryanze gutana ijosi ryibasiwe bitavugwa igihugu cyuzuye imiborogo ubwoko bwahindutse icyaha abamugaye n'abapfakazi baseke, abasizwe iheruheru bamenwe, amaganya yibuke twizere.
Niba tuyobowe ubutwari, umunyabyaha azareke guhaba, atange ikiru yiruhutse, ukuri kuzabohora imitima, u Rwanda rwongere guhera. Twarabakoraga, turababura, ikivi cyanyu tuzacyusa, bana b'u Rwanda, tuzahora iteka tubibuka. Twarabakoraga, turababura, ikivi cyanyu tuzacyusa, bana b'u Rwanda, tuzahora iteka tubibuka. Bana b'u Rwanda, tuzahora iteka tubibuka. Bana b'u Rwanda, tuzahora iteka tubibuka.
Started for 100 days. The nights were long. Days could not end. There was despair. Every Kwibuka begins on the 7th of April every year. And His Excellency President Kagame always has a message for the people and for the world. So we're going to screen his speech that took place on the 7th of April. Please.
Abahanzi barakoze, banacyubahiro, bashyitsi bahire, tugeze mu mwanya wo kwakira ijambo nyamukuru ry'uyu munsi. Your Excellency President Paul Kagame, we now invite you to deliver your keynote message.
Dear friends, Excellencies, heads of state and government, and first ladies, former heads of state and government, and former first ladies, and heads of delegations. Special guests, Banyarwanda mwese. Abanyarwanda ndi busabe ko munyihanganira nkakomeza iri jambo mu rurimi abashyitsi bacu bari bushobore kumva neza. Today, our hearts are filled with grief and gratitude in equal measure. We remember our dead and are also grateful for what Rwanda has become. To the survivors among us, we are in your debt we asked you to do the impossible by carrying the burden of reconciliation on your shoulders, and you continue to do so, continue to do the impossible for our nation every single day, and we thank you. As the years pass, the descendants of survivors increasingly struggle with the quiet loneliness of longing for relatives they never met or never even got the chance to be born. Today, we are thinking of you as well. Our tears flow inward, but we carry on as a family. Countless Rwandans also resisted the call to genocide. Some paid the ultimate price for that courage, and we honor their memory. Our journey has been long and tough. Rwanda was completely humbled by the magnitude of our loss. And the lessons we learned are engraved in blood. But the tremendous progress of our country is plain to see, and it is a result of the choices we made together to resurrect our nation. The foundation of everything is unity. That was the first choice, to believe in the idea of a reunited Rwanda and live accordingly. The second choice was to reverse the arrow of accountability, which used to point outwards beyond our borders. Now, we are accountable to each other, above all. Most importantly, we chose to think beyond the horizon of tragedy and become a people with a future. Today, we also feel a particular gratitude to all the friends and representatives here with us from around the world. We are deeply honored by your presence alongside us on this very heavy day. The contributions you have made to Rwanda's rebirth are enormous and have helped us to stand where we are now. I want to recognize a few while also asking for forgiveness for not being able to mention all who deserve it. For example, Uganda, which carried the burden of Rwanda's internal problems for so many years and was even blamed for that. The leadership and the people of Ethiopia and Eritrea helped us in starting to rebuild at that time. In fact, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, who is here, even served as a young peacekeeper in the immediate aftermath of the genocide. There is Kenya, Burundi, the Democratic Republic of Congo hosted large numbers of Rwandan refugees and gave them a home. Tanzania as well, and also played a unique role at many critical points, including hosting and facilitating the Arusha peace process. And here, I must single out the late President Julius Nyerere, who embodied the spirit which laid that foundation. The Republic of Congo has been a productive partner in rebuilding and more. Many of the countries represented here today also sent their sons and daughters to serve as peacekeepers in Rwanda. Those soldiers did not fail Rwanda. It was the international community which failed all of us, whether from contempt or cowardice. Among those here with us today, I salute the widow and daughter of the late Captain Mbaye Diagne of Senegal, who died a hero as he rescued many Rwandans from death. At the United Nations Security Council in 1994, moral clarity came from Nigeria, the Czech Republic, and even as far away as New Zealand. Their ambassadors had the courage to call the genocide by its rightful name and resist political pressure from more powerful countries to hide the truth. Ambassador Ibrahim Gambari of Nigeria and Czech Ambassador Karol Kovenda are here with us today, and we applaud you. Even in countries where government policy was on the wrong side of history, both during the genocide and even afterwards, there were always individuals who stood out for their honesty and humanity. we shall always be grateful. We also appreciate the tangible support we have received from partners beyond our continent over the past 30 years. In Europe, the United States, Asia, and many international organizations and philanthropies. A notable example of solidarity came to us from South Africa. One among many. Indeed, the entire arc of our continent's hopes and agonies could be seen in those few months of 1994. As South Africa ended apartheid and elected Nelson Mandela president, in Rwanda, the last genocide of the 20th century was being carried out. The new South Africa paid for Cuban doctors to help rebuild our shattered health system and opened up its universities to Rwandan students, paying only local fees. Among the hundreds of students who benefited from South Africa's generosity, some were orphaned survivors, others were the children of perpetrators, and many were neither. Most have gone on to become leaders in our country in different fields. Today, they live a completely new life. What lessons have really been learned about the nature of genocide and the value of life? I want to share a personal story, which I usually keep to myself. My cousin, in fact, a sister, Florence, worked for the United Nations Development Program in Rwanda for more than 15 years. After the genocide started, she was trapped in her house near the Camp Kigali Army Barracks with her niece and other children and neighbors, around a dozen people in total. The telephone in Francis' house still worked, and I called her several times using my satellite phone. Each time we spoke, she was more desperate. But our forces could not reach the area. When the commander of the UN peacekeeping mission, General Dallaire, visited me where I was in Mulindi, I asked him to rescue Florence. He said he would try. The last time I talked to her, I asked her if anyone had come. She said no, and started crying. Then she said, Paul, you should stop trying to save us. We don't want to live anymore anyway. I quickly understood what she was saying, and she hung up. At that time, I had a very strong heart, but it weakened a bit because I understood what she was trying to tell me. On the morning of May 16th, following a month of torture, they were all killed, except for one niece who managed to escape, and thanks to a good neighbor. It later emerged that a Rwandan working at the UNDP betrayed his Tutsi colleagues to the killers. Witnesses remember him celebrating Florence's murder the night after the attack. He continued his career with the United Nations for many years, even after evidence implicating him emerged. He's still a free man, now living in France. I asked General Dallaire what happened. He said that his soldiers encountered a militia roadblock near the house, and so they turned back just like that. Meanwhile, he conveyed to me an order from the United States ambassador to protect diplomats and foreign civilians evacuating from or by road to Burundi from attack by the militias. These two things happened same time. I do not need to be instructed to do something that goes without saying. That's what I was going to do. But the militias ran away, or rather peacekeepers ran away from militias, were manning a roadblock. I do not blame General Dallaire. He's a good man who did the best that could be done in the worst conditions imaginable, and who has consistently borne witness to the truth despite the personal cost. Nevertheless, in the contrast between the two cases, I took note of the value that is attached to different shades of life. In 1994, all Tutsi were supposed to be completely exterminated once and for all, because the killings that had forced me and hundreds of thousands of others into exile 3 decades before had not been sufficiently thorough. That is why even babies were systematically murdered so they would not grow up to become fighters. Rwandans will never understand why any country would remain intentionally vague about who was targeted in the genocide. I don't understand it. Such ambiguity is in fact a form of denial which is a crime in and of itself. And Rwanda will always challenge it. When the genocidal forces fled to Zaire, now the Democratic Republic of Congo, in July 1994, with the support of the external backers, they vowed to reorganize and return to complete the genocide. They conducted hundreds of cross-border terrorist attacks inside Rwanda over the next 5 years, targeting not only survivors, but also other Rwandans who had refused to go into exile, claiming thousands more lives. The remnants of those forces are still in eastern Congo today, where they enjoy state support in full view of the United Nations peacekeepers, their objectives have not changed. And the only reason this group today known as FDLR has not been disbanded is because their continued existence serves some unspoken interest. As a result, hundreds of thousands of Congolese Tutsi refugees live here in our country, in Rwanda, and beyond, completely forgotten, and no program of action for their safe return. Have we really learned any lessons? We see too many actors, even some from Africa, getting directly involved as tribal politics is given renewed prominence, and ethnic cleansing is prepared and practiced. What has happened to us? Is this the Africa we want to live in? Is this the kind of world we want? Rwanda's tragedy is a warning. The process of division and extremism, which leads to genocide, can happen anywhere if left unchecked. Throughout history, survivors of mass atrocities are always expected to be quiet, to censor themselves, or else be erased and even blamed for their own misfortune. Their testimony is living evidence of complicity, and it unsettles the fictions which comfort the enablers and the bystanders. The more Rwanda takes full responsibility for its own safety and dignity, the more intensely the established truth about the genocide is questioned and revised. Over time, in the media controlled by the powerful in the world, in this world, victims are rebranded as villains. And even this very moment of commemoration is derided as a mere political tactic. It is not. It never has been. Our reaction to such a hypocrisy is pure disgust. We commemorate because those lives mattered to us. Rwandans cannot afford to be indifferent to root causes of genocide. We will always pay maximum attention, even if we are alone. But what we are seeking is solidarity and partnership to recognize and confront these threats together as a global community. I'll tell you another story. One night, in the later days of the genocide, I received a surprise visit past midnight from General Dallaire. he brought a written message of which I still have a copy from the French general commanding the force that France had just deployed in the western part of our country, that Operation Turquoise. The message said that we would pay a heavy price, meaning those of us, the RPF, if our forces dared to try to capture the town of Butare, that is in southern part of our country. So, and General Darrell gave me additional advice. He said, in fact, he warned me. He said that the French had attacked helicopters and all kinds of arms. Every kind of heavy weapon you can imagine, and therefore were prepared to use them against us if we did not comply. I asked Darrell, I asked him whether French soldiers bleed the same way ours do. I asked him whether we have blood in our bodies. Then I thanked him and told him that he should just go and have rest and sleep, and have his sleep. After giving after informing the French that our response would follow, and it did. I immediately radioed the commander of the forces that were actually in that direction, in that area, is called Fred Ibingira. And told him to get ready to move, and move to fight. We took Butare, which we were being warned not to enter. We took that town at dawn. Within weeks, the entire country had been secured. And we began rebuilding. We did not have the kind of arms that were being used to threaten us. But I reminded some people that this is our land, this is our country. Those who bleed will bleed over it. We had lost all fear. Each challenge or indignity just made us stronger. After the genocide, we face the puzzle of how to prevent it from recurring. There were three broad lessons we learned as a result of our experience. First, only we as Rwandans and Africans can give full value to our lives. After all, we cannot ask others to value African lives more highly than we ourselves do. That is the root of our duty to preserve memory and tell our history as we lived it. Second, never wait for rescue or ask for permission to do what is right to protect people. And that's why some people must be joking when they threaten us with all kinds of things and they don't know what they're talking about. But in any case, that's why Rwanda participates proudly in peacekeeping operations today and also extends assistance to African brothers and sisters bilaterally when asked. Third, stand firm against the politics of ethnic populism in any form. Genocide is populism in its purified form, because the causes are political. The remedies must be as well. For that reason, our politics is not organized on the basis of ethnicity or religion, and it never will be again. The life of my generation has been a recurring cycle of genocidal violence in 30-year intervals. From the early 1960s to 1994, to the signs we see in our region today in 2024. Only a new generation of young people have the ability to renew and redeem a nation after genocide. Our job was to provide the space and the tools for them to break the cycle. And they have. What gives us hope and confidence are the children we saw in the performance area, or the youth who created the tradition of Walk to Remember that will occur later today. Nearly 3/4 of Rwandans today are under age 35. They either have no memory of the genocide or were not yet born. Our youth are the guardians of our future. And the foundation of our unity, with a mindset that is totally different from the generation before. Today, it is all Rwandans who have conquered fear. Nothing can be worse than what we have already experienced. This is a nation of 14 million people who are ready to confront any attempt to take us backwards. The Rwandan story shows how much power human beings have within them. Whatever power you do have, you might as well use it to tell the truth and do what is right. During the genocide, people were sometimes given the option of paying for a less painful death. There is another story I learned about at the time, which always sticks in my mind, about a woman at a roadblock in her final moments. She left us a lesson that even every African should live by. Every African should live by this lesson. When asked by the killers how she wanted to die, she looked them in the eye and spit in their face. Today, because of the accident of survival, our only choice is what life we want to live. Our people will never, and I mean never, be left for dead again. I thank you.
Indeed, Africans must have to learn how to value our lives. The message was very clear. It's never again. Rwanda has recovered and will never allow genocide, not only in Rwanda, but anywhere in the world to occur again. And that's why Rwanda is the third largest contributor of peacekeepers all over the world.
زي ما حضراتكم شفتوا الخطاب الوطني لفخامة رئيس جمهورية رواندا بول كاجامي، وهي رسالة فخامته كانت واضحة، وهي لن تتكرر أبداً، لأن رواندا قد تعافت ولن تسمح بحدوث الإبادة الجماعية مرة أخرى، ليس فقط في رواندا ولكن في جميع أنحاء العالم. دلوقتي رواندا بتعد حالياً أكبر مساهم في بعثات حفظ السلام على مستوى العالم. شكراً.
Among us here we have the Dean of African Ambassadors Group, Ambassador Dr. Mohamedou Labrang, Ambassador of the Republic of Cameroon to the Arab Republic of Egypt.
هسيب حضراتكم مع سعادة سفير الكاميرون عميد مجموعة السفراء الأفارقة السفير الدكتور محمد لابرانج.
Ambassador.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Excellencies, ministers, colleagues, ambassadors, sisters and brothers from Rwanda, esteemed guests, ladies and gentlemen, Ambassador Dan, I thank you for giving me this opportunity. We are here together today in solemnity and reverence, in genuine solidarity with the Rwandan people. We are here gathered today to commemorate the 30th anniversary of the genocide of Tutsis in Rwanda. This dark chapter in human history serves as a stark reminder of the horrors of ethnic violence and the devastating consequences of indifference and inaction. The genocide of the Tutsi in Rwanda was not an isolated event, but rather the culmination of deep-rooted ethnic tensions and political instability. It was fueled, as you heard in the speech by His Excellency the President Kagame, by a history of colonialism and divisive policies that's thought to oppose rather than to unite people in Rwanda. These policies, which were exacerbated by economic disparities and political marginalization, created fertile ground for hatred and violence to take root. However, this tragedy of genocide was not only the result of internal factors, but also the deplorable inaction of international community and the United Nations. Despite the presence of UN forces on the ground who were mandated to protect civilians, the international community failed to intervene. And you heard the many stories that was also alluded to by His Excellency the President. They failed to intervene to stop the bloodshed. The failure to act not only cost thousands of hundreds of lives of innocent men, women, and children, but also tarnished the credibility of the UN and the principles it stands for. Despite the immense challenges that they face, the Rwandan people have shown remarkable resilience and determination in overcoming the aftermath of the genocide. Through their collective efforts, they have worked tirelessly to heal the wounds of the past and build a more inclusive and peaceful society. They have embraced the spirit of reconciliation and forgiveness, recognizing that only unity and understanding can build a future of a nation. Moreover, amidst the darkness of the tragedy, there shines a beacon of hope, the resilience and determination of the Rwandan people in the face of an unimaginable horror. They have shown remarkable courage and strength, working tirelessly to heal the wounds of the past and to build a more inclusive and peaceful society. Their commitment to regulate and to reconciliate and to forgive serves as an example to us all. Indeed, what the Rwandan people have been able to accomplish should not only be a source of pride for Rwandans, but a source of inspiration for all Africans. It is a testimony of the fact that Africa can overcome all odds and place itself amongst the most developed economies in the world. They have shown it. They have shown that we can do it as Africans. The transformation that Rwanda has undergone in the past 3 decades, serves as a testimony for the resilience and potential of all African continent. In conclusion, let me draw inspiration from the resilience and courage of the Rwandan people and recommit ourselves to the values of peace, justice, and reconciliation. May the memory of the victims be a reminder of our shared humanity and our collective responsibility to protect the dignity and rights of people, regardless of their ethnicity and background. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Excellency.
Thank you very much. We now are going to listen to the keynote address. After that powerful speech of solidarity from the Dean of Ambassadors of Group of Africa, we are going to listen to the keynote address from Ambassador Dan Munyuza. Ambassador Dan Munyuza is a former Commissioner General of Police, but more importantly, he was one of the liberators who defeated the genocidal forces on the 4th of July 1994 with the RPA, the Rwanda Patriotic Paul Kagame. Ambassador Munyuza, please.
Your Excellency, Major General Ened Abdel Kader Yamani, Assistant Minister of Defense for the Border Guard Force, Major General Rami Moheni Eldin, Assistant Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces for the Air Defense, Ambassador Ahmed Safat, Deputy Assistant Minister for Nile Basin Countries, Excellencies, ambassadors, high commissioners, and members of the diplomatic corps, defense attaches, religious leaders, members of the business community, our friends from the media, friends of Rwanda, fellow Rwandans, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Allow me to begin by welcoming you all to the 30th commemoration of the genocide against the Tutsi that happened in 1994. On behalf of the government of Rwanda, I extend my sincere gratitude to you all who have joined us in our remembrance, our unity, and our renewal. Your acceptance of our invitation has enhanced our efforts to ensure that the voices of our survivors and the over 1 million innocent Tutsi lives taken during the genocide against the Tutsi are not forgotten. Today, we remember the innocent souls that lost their lives during the genocide against Tutsi, that include babies, children, women, men, who were taken from us because of who they were born as was determined by a genocidal government. If we are to take a minute of silence for every life lost in the 100 days between April and June of 1994, would remain silent for 2,740 years. We come together to remember those we lost and to honor their memory, celebrate the resilience of survivors, and pledge a future free from such horrors. Before April 7th, 1994, to be born a Tutsi in Rwanda was considered both a crime and a sin. At this juncture, I would like to raise the voices of just two of those victims to illustrate what I mean. In April 15, 1994, while seeking refuge in a Catholic cathedral, a young child cried. "Forgive me, I will never be called a Tutsi again." The child was not spared. Her mother, who was in hiding until this, let out a cry and begged. "Please let me check if my child is breathing." She was visibly pregnant, and the killers responded, "How about we cut you open instead and see what the fetus of a Tutsi looks like?" They cut her up and killed her unborn child, and this is what they proceeded to do. These acts were carried out at an altar in the house of God. It was witnessed by a 6-year-old girl who survived the killings that day, but lost both her parents. Today, this survivor is a wife and a mother of 2. Every year, she remembers what she saw, and every year, we listen. Today, you have listened, you have shared in her testimony, I thank you for listening and for solidarity. Ladies and gentlemen, it was only Rwanda that was robbed of over 1 million people. It was not only Rwanda that was robbed of over 1 million people. It was the whole world. These were people with hopes and dreams, with talents, and who knows, with answers of some of the problems the world faces today. As a country, we are always striving to realize our own potential for good. When the world wrote of Rwanda a failed state, we Rwandans and our leaders refused to give up hope. As we commemorate today, we remember the hate-filled broadcasts that poisoned the minds of so many, long before 1994. The victims of that poisoning became the perpetrators of the genocide against Tutsi. They carried machetes that hacked away at innocent victims and the wooden clubs that crushed their skulls. Meanwhile, the rest of the world was enveloped in a deafening silence. The good news is that amidst the silence from the international community, some young Rwandans, led by gallantly the President Paul Kagame, took matters into their hands and heroically ended the genocide in July 1994, and then embarked on establishing eternal peace and security for all Rwandans. And from the ashes of genocide, a new Rwanda has risen, where unity and reconciliation are cornerstones of post-genocide reconstruction. Rwandans have rebuilt and continue to rebuild their country brick by brick. We have learned a lot from our sad history. Above all, we have chosen forgiveness over vindictiveness in order to break the cycle of hate. That said, there are many perpetrators who are yet to face justice. These fugitives include senior members of the former government, civilian and military, who live freely in many countries across the world, who have not faced justice for the last 30 years. The world needs to work harder, collectively, to bring them to justice. Most painfully for genocide survivors, some of these fugitives routinely engage in the genocide, denialism, trivialization, and revisionism. They are adept at exploiting social media and all forms of propaganda tools to portray themselves as the victims, while turning victims into perpetrators. In Rwanda, our commitment to upholding the memory of victims through commemoration of the 1994 genocide against Tutsi remains unwavering. Beyond our borders, Rwanda needs all nations and people of the goodwill to stand with her in combating and uprooting the genocide ideology of ethnic hatred. Ladies and gentlemen, even as I speak, events which often point to the unfolding genocide, such as hate speech, incitement to genocide, pogroms, ethnic cleansing, are in evidence in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Those who are committing atrocities include a group that calls itself Democratic Forces for Liberation of Rwanda, known more widely by the acronym FDLR. They are an offshoot of the main perpetrators of the genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda, the former Armed Forces of Rwanda, FAL, and the notorious Interahamwe militia. These criminals exported their ideology of genocide to Congo, where 30 years later, it has taken root. Today, the government in Kinshasa works with this genocidal group, going as far as integrating it into the National Army, the FARDC. Their target group are the Congolese Tutsi, who are citizens of the Democratic Republic of Congo. I say all this to raise awareness internationally of the plight of the victims of the ethnic cleansing by the Kinshasa government and its militia allies. The aim is to raise alarm before another tragedy on the scale of the genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda occurs. Our aim is to make the vow never again a reality. Whenever we commemorate the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda, we take time to mobilize and sensitize the world about the crime of genocide and urge the world to come up with a common stand that it should never happen again anywhere. This is the time when we call on the UN member states that are signatories to the 1948 UN Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide to fight and prosecute hate speech and crimes of genocide. Rwanda urges the international community to put in place laws that criminalize genocide, genocide denial, and revisionism, and genocide ideology. Rwanda advocates for the establishment in different countries memory symbols in remembrance of the 1994 genocide against Tutsi. We recognize and thank countries that have so far established these symbols in their countries. Rwanda also advocates for inclusion of teachings about 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in schools to educate the young and next generations about the need to fight hate ideologies and stand against any form of discrimination and divisionism. We extend our gratitude to countries and friends of Rwanda that have supported us on our development journey and continue to do so. I wish to take this opportunity to express our sincere gratitude to the government of the Republic of Egypt for the existing brotherly relations and fruitful cooperation with Rwanda, and for the support extended to Rwanda in its recovery and reconstruction effort, especially in the areas of higher education, defense and security training, health, and trade. Let me conclude with quoting His Excellency President Kagame in his address during the 30th commemoration of the genocide against Tutsi on 7th April in Kigali. He reiterated, and we just heard him say this: our people will never be left for dead again. End of quote. Thank you for your kind attention. Thank you for your support. Shukran. We shall always be there with you, friends who have come to support us whenever you call on us, to celebrate with you and to observe any event as you may organize. Thank you very much. Let me seize this opportunity to invite our guest of honor, His Excellency Ambassador Ahmed Safat, Deputy Assistant Minister for Nile Basin Countries Affairs, to come and give us his remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, Ambassador Dan Munyuza, Ambassador of Rwanda to Egypt, for this opportunity to address this distinguished gathering on this very important occasion. I feel humbled to have to address an event of such magnitude, a memory of such magnitude, with such few words that definitely will not give this event its meaning, or its full meaning. Excellencies, Minister, members of government, representatives of the armed forces, members of parliament, religious authorities here present, Excellencies, ambassadors and members of the diplomatic corps, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, it's an honor and privilege to be here today with our Rwandan brothers and with all of you to commemorate together the genocide that took place against the Tutsi 30 years ago. Reflecting on such a tragedy brings grief to our hearts, although it gives us hope that it won't happen again, as long as we are learning from our previous mistakes. That said, the resilience and the reconciliation demonstrated by the courageous Rwandan people are quite impressive and commendable, under the wise leadership of His Excellency President Paul Kagame, whose daring vision transformed Rwanda into an inspiring story that everyone admires and into a successful model that everyone looks up to. On this note, it gives me pleasure to say that Egypt is trying to be part of that success stories as well through our bilateral relations, which are high on our priority list for the government and for His Excellency President of the Republic, Abdel Fattah el-Sisi himself. We have seen lately, it's noteworthy, the advancement with the continuous exchange of high-level visits between our two countries, technical cooperation, as His Excellency mentioned, development projects that lead by example on how we should work together for the good of our people's region and the continent. And I mention a symbol of that cooperation, which is the new cardiology hospital that is being built in Kigali under the supervision of the world-renowned Egyptian heart surgeon, Sir Magdi Yaqub, and that we hope to inaugurate very soon, inshallah. I hope it will be an example of our exemplary relations at the bilateral level. In this framework, I would like to go back a little bit to the genocide, to the solutions that Rwanda has presented to us. It still resonates in the region 3 decades afterwards. Hence, I take advantage of this opportunity to call upon the international community to step up and fulfill its responsibilities, not to fail Rwanda or not to fail others as they have Rwanda before, and to put an end to the suffering of the victims of violence and hatred wherever they are. This is not the solution. And let me conclude with this. I thank you again for teaching the world. I thank Rwanda again for teaching the world through your ordeal that we as human beings have to forgive, even if we cannot forget. And thank you very much for listening to me and giving me your attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, guest speaker. Now, as we close, let me take the opportunity to, on behalf of the Rwandan community, to thank you for taking time to come and be with us, as we remember our brothers and sisters who perished 30 years ago during the 1994 Rwandan genocide against the Tutsi.
بالنيابة عن الجالية الرواندية في مصر، اسمحوا لي أن أشكر حضراتكم لتخصيص وقتكم الغالي لأنكم تشرفونا النهاردة لإحياء الذكرى 30 اللي وقعت سنة 1994 ضد التوتسي في رواندا. ودلوقتي هناخد الصور الجماعية. Yes, please.
We are going to conclude with some pictures, and there will be three kinds of groups. Of course, my ambassador and Madam Ambassador will have to be part of each group. The first group is going to be Their Excellencies, ambassadors, high commissioners, and government officials. And then the second group will be Ambassador Rwanda with the defense attaches. And their third group will be the Rwandan community. In the first group, I'll request a representative from Afrexim Bank, I think Mr. Ekene is there, and also one from Badea to join the first group. I think here. Here is better. Yes. Down. Yes. Is it here? Here. Oh, no. They will block this. Just hold on. It will block this. Just hold on. Yeah. No, I think it's okay. Consider. Here it will be yes. Will block.
They should come.
No, it will block. Yes. I think the defense attaches will just come back. One group should go up. Sorry. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We can now have the defense attaches. May we have the defense attaches?
ndakwibuka nzamwita n'abana be bose munyesange manweri habiyambere tomasi reka twibuke aho padiri nyangezi nawe yavukaga
Hello, hello.
kwa rutamu baraharimarima babicira igasasa babicira ikibumba
The defense attaches, please get closer to the ambassador.
ndavuga bene rushingwankiko barashira bajyana nabi gashiru
Yeah. Arabimbwiye. Njya ndabashira after. Hello, hello. I'm going to request Ambassador. Please, just make a line here. Just make a line here. I need attention. Join here. This. You're government official. You're government official. A government official. Okay, I'm going to go in the business community. Okay, then you come. Yeah, we're about to close. We're not yet closed, so we're still here. And then you go. Hello? Business community. Can I invite now the business community and the media? The business community and the media. CEOs. Hello? Hello? Can I? Business community and the media, CEOs, and everyone who is representing their institutions, please. Ambassador Answer, can't you join the group, please? Please join the picture. I invited them here. Hello. None abanyarwanda twese muze hano, the Rwandan community. Hello. Hello. Oh, the Rwandan community, please. Abanyarwanda twese muze twifotoze. I guess, Nur, you are going to be part of this.
Hello.
Mujali. Muzi ushaka kuza imbere. Go and manage your boss. Thank you very much. I'm so happy that you came. No, I am indeed, always been. So, you want to leave? Yeah, there's nothing else. We're close. Thank you very much. We need to cut it. Take the others after. Abanza agire. But it is part of Rwandans. And you, no, I said no, you have to be part of it. Yes. Frank, you're part of the community. Yes, of course.
Gakindi bizimungu n'agatera twitaga imbogo nimwakire ntashye zabo mwasize twese turabibuka cyane mu bitaramo no mu nkera zo ku mugote.
think then we this is done. Young Haras.
Gashotsi Kagabo Nkubiri na Ruvugabigwi mudusurize musirikare Rufara na Kabo y'ibibwiri n'Akarahamuheto na Shogoza bo mu Kinzuzi munadusurize n'abari inshuti zo ku Mugote nka Ruzibiza Fideli na Nkurikiyimana Deo n'abandi bose